Hello everybody and welcome to Sega Does episode 38. I am Sam the Pixel Dude, and joining me virtually to my left as always we have the Dylan D. How we doing, Dylan?
Doing pretty well. You know, it's every time I hear the opening track and any tracks you've selected recently, it just reminds me of my childhood and like MTV, you know, the early 90s, New Jack Swing and all these weird genres that only lasted a couple years but were awesome.
See, people nowadays think they're corny, but I think they just need to admit that actually it was really cool, and it's okay. You can just admit it. Don't take other people's opinions. Like the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s was brilliant because it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
Don't be scared. It's fine. So what are we talking about today, Dylan? Well, quite unlike us, we've got 3 or 4 big headline acts on today's episode, so we're going to be talking quite a bit today. We've got some music as well, because we have some good reaction from you guys about the music we added in. So today we're going to be talking about Mystic Defender, Revenge of Shinobi, Fruxton, Mahjong Cop, and Golden Axe. So we got some big games today, Dylan.
That's a lot. I've just been happy that I've been able to post 3 times a week. I think that's a record for me. I haven't been able to do that since this blog started. So getting a lot of, especially these bigger games out has been crazy. And actually, I skipped Herzog's Zwei. I don't know if he's Eins Zwei. Yeah, Herzog's Zwei.
Yeah.
I skipped that one because I've heard several people say you need to try it 2-player because that's the best way to play it. So I didn't review it, and then Sword of Vermilion I started, but it's an RPG, another one. I was not aware that there were so many on the Genesis. Like I thought the Genesis was known as, you know, the arcade machine more than anything, but already got 3 RPGs in 1989. So
yeah, it's surprising. It's I don't envy you, that's for sure. Anyway, so we better jump straight into these games. So, first off, Mystic Defender.
Yeah, don't let the cover fool you.
No.
Either of them, actually, because neither of them are that good. But
no.
I thought this game was just something else. I thought it was really interesting.
As in an interesting something else. It showed a little bit of polish and a bit of like detail in the small details that I wasn't quite expecting quite yet, if you know what I mean. There are lots of little things in this game, mainly graphical, that quite impressed me. There's some impressive stuff going on with the like when you kill an enemy on this side-scrolling action game. It's an action. Yeah, it's an action game. There's a bit of exploration and stuff like that going on, but it's basically a left to right action game. What I was trying to say is there's some nice visual effects in here that they're starting to go to town with. Some of the explosions, they look just like a Dragon Ball Z, like a kind of explosion. They obviously animated it and it came out real nice, and I was like, wow, we're going to use it on everything. So whenever anything dies in the game, this really nice like comes across, which is cool. There's some really nice fire effects, kind of physics-based fire effects. They're actually, instead of animating some of the fire sticks that come out of the lava and stuff, they're actually using mathematics. It's a weird thing, but I noticed it, and there are lots of little details. As a tech guy, I noticed in this game, they're actually starting to use this hardware in very clever ways. For me, it didn't really translate over to the gameplay, even though the gameplay actually was quite in depth with many different power-ups and stuff like that. But why don't you give us a little bit of a synopsis about the premise of the game, Dylan?
The premise, well, it's actually a sequel to Spellcaster for the Master System. which was not as good of a game as this one. This one is much superior. Spellcaster kind of tried to do a lot of different. It genre dabbled like so many Master System games did, and none of them really worked that well. But it worked. They worked well enough for what they were doing. This is just straight action. But the key to progressing in the game is you collect magic along the way from after beating different bosses, and the key is kind of like Mega Man. It's like knowing what magic to use at what time.
Yeah.
And what really got like the action is good. It's not great, but what really made this game for me was just the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And how dark it was and bleak it was, and I kind of feel like they couldn't have done a game like this a few years later, even because nobody was paying attention to the Genesis at this time or the Mega Drive. In Japan, people care less about this sort of thing, but certainly in America, you know, when this was released in early 1990, you know, everyone's eyes were still on the NES. So I feel like Sega got away with a lot more. In particular, there's a lot of grotesque like monsters.
Yeah.
But in particular, towards the end, there's actually a bit of nudity.
Is that? I didn't get that far. Damn.
Yeah, at the very end of the game, this girl is completely naked. But
really?
in later revisions of the game, they of course put a dress on her or something.
Of course.
So anyway, but the action, I would say, is more, it's slower paced. It's not, you're not meant to just go super fast through a level. It's more methodical. You're kind of presented with like, oh, now there are these enemies. How are you going to beat them?
Yeah, I found it quite frustrating until you started getting a few powers. I don't know about you.
Right. Yeah.
It was, I'm not going to say it like got easier, but you were obviously by design you were better equipped to deal with problems that you came across, and it's to me it was like you said, like the little details I found were like in stuff like the atmosphere and stuff. One of the games I feel like nailed atmospheres in the 16-bit when 16-bit started was like Castlevania 4, and this to me felt atmosphere-wise a lot like Castlevania 4. You could relate, and it gave you a good sensation of what it was like to be in the level. Like you could, like, it's a cave kind of setup. You really felt like you were there, and yeah, it's just the little things. It was so close to being like a Castlevania 4 quality if the gameplay had been there. I think everything else about this game was pretty much sorted. You had the concept of getting different powers. The bosses were great, although sometimes a little bit repetitive, and there were quite a few like sub-bot, like mini bosses through levels. There's quite a lot of that going on in the game. It's just the gameplay just wasn't there, and it was so close to being, I think, I'm not going to say on par with Castlevania because that's going a bit far, but you could see the seeds of something real good. If this hadn't been the second game in the franchise, if this had been the first game, I think it would have maybe progressed a bit better.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because this is such an early game.
Yeah.
And also, I should mention that this is like Spellcaster for the Master System. This is based on a manga, and you know, a game like Mystic Defender, just that name, it like doesn't bring to mind anything really. It's like, what does that make you think of? Nothing. Mystic Defender, I don't know what that means. So whereas something like, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is names are important for people to kind of remember them, and unless you play this game, you're probably not going to rent it based off the cover.
No.
You're not going to be interested in it unless somebody is raving to you about it, you know? And so I was surprised at how many people like this game but again, they're the type of people who either played it when it was new or just went back and are kind of like doing what we're doing in that they're just playing a bunch of different old games just to see. But it's not quite a classic, but I would still say it's a good action game.
Yeah.
And I would say that it's one that people should try, because I feel like for 89, this is pretty stinking impressive.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, it was a nice little surprise. Let's put it like that. It's a nice if you play these games and you take in concept in consideration when it came out. It's very, very impressive. What score did you give it, Dylan? Because my page is screwed up.
I gave it a B+. Yeah.
Wow, pretty high score. Very impressive, obviously. Right. I'm going to try and do this properly here, guys.
If you want, I can read the comments. I never read comments, so I don't mind.
You go for comments, because my for some reason my Mystic Defender page has mystically defended itself. it's disappeared. So,
all right. Well, let's see. Garrett CRW says, "I have to agree. This is one of the better early era Genesis games, and it should have gotten more attention. Though the nudity towards the end would have caused a huge stink if it had. I think that's the shame of Sega alienating me with the Sega Does What Nintendo Don't campaign. The early Genesis library is quite strong, especially when compared to the Master System's early lineup." And I would agree with that.
I could just see that advert now. It's like, Genesis does boobs.
Just
really? Wow, I'm buying that.
Flashing in your face. Yeah, all the 13-year-olds.
Sega don't do boobs.
Telling your.
Brilliant.
That's pretty.
Somebody
funny.
should make that. All you YouTubers out there, do that. Send it to me. That'd be brilliant. Fantastic.
Let's see. Sean697. I remember buying this right away in the fall of '89. See.
Wow.
I had no idea what the game was about. I only found out recently that it was connected to Spellcaster, but I was pleasantly surprised. This game was sort of dark, and me and my friends loved it. It had crazy monsters and demons and stuff, plus it played pretty good. And then when you beat it, it had a naked lady. Once again, what can you say? I was 13 or 14. You just didn't see that kind of stuff in games. That's very true.
It's very true.
Yeah, so let's see. There's quite a few. There's quite a few comments.
There's quite a few comments on the naked lady. That's what I like. All bringing it up.
Kurt13 makes a good point. The companies that made Nintendo games had to sneak their dark and weird crap in, but I'm always surprised with what they got away with on the NES, like Hitler's head exploding or whatever the hell was supposed to be going on in some of those Silver Surfer levels. That's true. Yeah. I would also add Monster Party to that. If you've never played that, Sam, check out Monster Party. You don't have to play very far. Just play level 1 and you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Or not.
No, I mean, it's interesting. It's just very bizarre, and I'm surprised Nintendo allowed it to happen.
Cool.
Old School Playa says, being a fan of Spellcaster and its RPG elements, I was looking forward to playing the sequel with my two boys. Where is the adventure and save system? I think I'll pass now, but glad to hear it's still a good platformer. So no Mystic Defender for him. He liked the adventure portions.
Yeah, so some people are like that. So I'm noticing it more and more nowadays. People go, does it have a, what do you call them? Does it have is it a tech tree? Spec tree? When you spec out your characters, I don't know. You give them attributes and stuff like that. They're like, does it have a tech tree? Does it have this? Does it have that? And they go, if it doesn't have those key RPG elements, they just go, nope, not playing it. And it's like, okay. It's very closed-minded of you, but okay.
Well, I mean, everyone likes what they like, and I think when you get older, I don't know how old those people are saying that, but I think when you get older,
like my age.
Okay, yeah, I could see that, because it's like you have so little time to play, so you kind of want to invest wisely. But
see, I'm the opposite.
You just play whatever.
I probably play one, maybe two of those really engrossing games. Like it takes you it's like a 60-hour game a year.
Oh yeah,
and the rest of it's just like, give me Outrun. I want one lap. I got 5 minutes. Then I got to put the kids to bed, and then I got to do the washing, and then I just want to do a lap. One lap, please.
One lap. Yeah. I guess that's what people are trying to convince everyone that mobile's doing is,
Yeah, see, I haven't gone down there either. I ain't gone down the I tell you, we need to do what does Sega does think of mobile games episode. That'd be interesting.
We should look into Sega mobile games and actually see. Because I know they have quite a few.
The Crazy Taxi game is bad.
I've heard bad things about most of them. Actually,
breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
let's talk about a good Sega game. Let's try and do this properly with some music. It's time for Revenge of Shinobi. That's some Genesis synth. Listen to that. That's brilliant. Sean, this one's for you, because I know you like your music in your Sega Does episode, so... Oh, hello, I slipped. We're going to be bringing a little bit more music in here. So, the godlike game. The legacy is strong in this one, Dylan. We have Revenge of Shinobi.
Yeah, I love this game.
You love this game, do you?
I do.
Okay. So, what is Revenge of Shinobi?
It's another action game. It's actually... It kind of reminded me of Mystic Defender, and I thought it was funny that Sega chose to release two very similar games to each other within like a week of each other. In Japan, anyway. That's not the case in America, but in Japan, both games came out within a week of each other. Shinobi is another one of those. It's an action game. It's a ninja game. It's kind of has a little bit of, I don't know, like it's a ninja game, and it starts off in in like ancient Japan, and then you just go everywhere. All of a sudden, you're like in like Neo Tokyo, and you're fighting nuns, and you're like, what is happening? And
it's hard to keep track of. There's a disco at one point.
Right. Yeah. Yep. You fight a shadow ninja in a disco.
Why not?
And that's, I don't know. I like Shinobi for its action, but I also like it because it's just crazy. It's like, I think that's what endears me to it. But you have shurikens. You attack with shurikens, and they're limited amount. You only have a limited amount, so you have to keep collecting them as you go on. You also have magic that could be used not once per level, but like once per section, I guess. There's like 3 levels per section.
Yeah.
And the magic is definitely, I mean, some of the time you need it to progress, and if you've already used it in a section, you'll be screwed. So it's, to me, it feels like this is the Revenge of Shinobi in every way. Gameplay, graphics, music. This feels like a proper 16-bit game to me. The first one we've had. More than Phantasy Star 2, more than Mystic Defender. Yeah. This feels like you could look at this and go, this is the future, this game right here, of what's going to happen. And of course, obviously, better games would come along, but this is kind of like a foreshadowing of things to come. That's how I look at Revenge of Shinobi. I don't know how you feel about it. You're being suspiciously quiet, so I'm not sure that you agree with me.
I'm just trying to find your score. Let's have a look. Okay.
It's quite a long review.
It's quite a long review. Oh, I clicked on an advert. That'll give you some money. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I wish.
Did it not? Okay. A-. Wow. That's a big score, Dylan.
It's a big score. I stand by it.
And many people agree with you. I do like the game. One of my most favourite things in the world is 16-bit and ninjas, and they go together quite well. I don't know if it's I'm going to say taste. It's a feel thing for me. It's the ninja. He be a bit floaty for me liking. I don't know. It's just him himself. He's not weighty enough for me.
The control
I'm talking about. Everything else is really nice. I like the way it looks. It looks very Japanese, but not in like a off-putting sort of way. There are certain games that are too Japanese for like Western taste, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of
we'll get to one actually.
Yeah, yes, we will. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like softer colours in this, lots of pastels, lots of, you know, like more Japanese art centric colours, especially like in the backgrounds and stuff like that. But it doesn't go like overboard with it. It keeps the detail there. It keeps all the action flowing, and I felt kind of useless, like close up to enemies, which I know the idea is you're supposed to jump around and use your daggers, shurikens, whatever the hell they're called.
Yeah.
And, you know, be frugal with them and use them wisely and take people away from afar, which is a little bit strange for me for a ninja. You know, usually you get close, but
Shinobi's always been kind of a and I would still, even though I feel like Revenge of Shinobi is faster than the original, I would still call it a kind of like Mystic Defender. It's a slower paced action game. Yeah. It's not like Ninja Gaiden, where you're just flying through the level.
Yeah.
It's not like that. So I get that. I have yet to play Shinobi 3 ever, or Shadow Dancer.
I love Shinobi 3. Shinobi 3 is my favourite out of the Shinobi.
I've heard that from a lot of people, so forward to that.
Because a lot of times, sometimes the threes in franchise, they do everything that number 2 did and add more, but it's just not quite right for some reason. But I actually think Shinobi 3 is a better game than the number 2.
The best one.
Yeah,
okay.
It's it doesn't go overboard with the new stuff. But it also doesn't like pad out what made the one before it great. You know, it's a proper way to do a number 3, which is very rarely done.
Yeah, that's very true.
But yeah, I mean, let's get some people involved here. Let's have a look at some comments, because this is a big game. Elmar. Let's have a look. One of my favourite Mega Drive games. I only recently found out though, Generation 6 through. Oh, sorry. Found out through Generation 16 that there were many revisions of this game due to all the copyright infringements. Indulge me on the copyright infringements of this game, because there are quite a few little funny tales and like, how the hell did they think they'd get away with this, and why did they do this and stuff like that. So
yeah, you got Arnold as the Terminator. You got Rambo, Stallone, who is actually, he's not a boss, he's like a recurring enemy throughout different levels. You've got Batman, Spider-Man, Godzilla shows up at one point. And I think I read, and they didn't cite any sources, so who knows, but I think I read either on Sega Retro or Wikipedia, I want to say it was Sega Retro though, that there were 4 different revisions of this game.
Wow.
4. Because each time they went back, they're like, oh, we got to change that. And so they did, re-released it, and then they got another copyright, notice. I'm just like, Sega, why did you not expect this? I thought that was crazy.
Could you imagine this nowadays? It'd just be, it'd never come out for a start, but my God, Disney would be able to live on Sega's suing money for many, many, many years. We've got Sut here. Good old Sut. He says this game is fantastic. Despite its difficulty, it never feels cheap. And it is beatable with plenty of practice. That is very true.
Very true.
Very, very true. GH says, good review as always, Dylan. Made me want to dig Revenge of Shinobi out until I remembered how hard it was. Definitely a game that needs lots of time and practice. It is a hard game.
It
is 16-bit hard. It's not quite 8-bit hard, but I think 16-bit hard is hard enough.
I would agree. Yeah, agree.
Let's have a look. ET here says Shinobi 3 is as difficult, but Shadow Dancer is much easier. So there's some foreshadowing going on there. We've got Bob. Hi, Bob. I was never very good at this game. And neither was I, Bob. I had this one growing up and never even realised stuff happened outside of feudal Japan. Well, it's funny. There's so many occasions I used to go around kids' houses back in the day and playing all the games, and then you'd be playing it. So, can I have a go on this? Like, oh yeah, they're fine, no problem. And you'd be playing it, and then you'd like get to like level 3, and then they turn around and go, "Oh man, I've never been here." That happened so many times, and they were like, "No, keep going." And of course, in most games, you couldn't save and stuff, so it was like, "Mom, quick, come look, he's got to level 3." Oh, that's nice, dear. And it's just like this monumental thing that you've got like 10% through the game.
Yep.
It's quite cool.
And oh yeah, should mention, you got your money's worth on this game. Yeah. There are tons of levels. I mean, it is long and difficult. So kudos to people that beat it on the original hardware back in the day.
We have one of my favorite comments ever from Vladimir, who says, "Female ninjas disguised as nuns? Don't you mean nunjas?" Fantastic.
Yeah, that was great. I hope he comes back.
I hope he comes back, and he should rename himself Nunja or Vladimir the Nunja or something, because I really like that. What else we got here? Anybody else? Tony Wilkins. All right, Tony. He says, "For me, this is one of those define. I can't do the black on the white, Dylan. You have to read that. I can't do. For me, this
white
is
on the black.
White on the black writing on the website. It's difficult. Okay. For me, this is one of those defining games for the Mega Drive. It is every bit a game of this generation in terms of genre, look, sound, and control. I will admit, I am yet to complete it, as a lot of people have. I have it on the 6-pack cartridge, so my version has the copyright versions. That's a shame. I wonder if there is like an eBay market for this game, like, is it version 1 and version 2, or what? There must be. There's gotta be.
I would imagine. Yeah. I would imagine. So, okay, I have to stop us in the middle here. Are you... Okay, so you have a problem reading the text. I hope other people don't. And I actually want to say, if a lot of people do, I will do my best to fix it. I actually feel like this, like when I should say, I read this mostly on my computer. I look at my site mostly on my computer because obviously I do a lot of posting and editing from there. So I see it on my computer. It looks fine. I use Firefox. It looks fine. And I've checked it in other like Internet Explorer and Chrome, and it looks fine there. But if for whatever reason, I mean, if my eyes are strange or if other people have the same problem, I will do my best.
Leave us a comment in episode 30.
Yeah, please leave us a comment.
It's just my eyes, Dylan. I'm pretty sure they're just knackered, mate.
Okay. All right, digression over. Let's
continue. We have good old friend of the show, Josh Dykeman. I didn't get a chance to play this as a kid because my Sega friend, we all have one of those, at school, never owned a copy. Damn him! For some reason. As an adult, I actually brought Shinobi free before acquiring this. So I actually prefer number 3 a bit. Mostly because I find the difficulty curve to be more manageable, and the extra attack move in the game gives me a lot more versatility than this. That's very true, Josh. So thank you, everybody. We had a lot of comments on Revenge of Shinobi. Remember, if you want to leave a comment on Sega Does, you don't have to sign up. You don't have to leave your telephone number and credit card details. There are no horrible things like that. All you need to do is go onto the page of the game you wish to comment about and comment on it. Simple as that. And please do.
And I pretty much respond to everybody.
Yes,
just about.
He does.
So
crazy guy. Okay, so next, we've got some more music, Dylan.
Yes, good.
Yes. All right, I'll try and do it subtly. Well, I've got so many buttons to press. It's crazy. Right, so next we have a shoot 'em up.
You're saying this differently. I'm curious as to why you're saying it the way you are.
We'll get to that. Okay. It's a very, well, I'd say very. I've always known about. I've always thought it was pretty well known around in the circles as kind of a real strange shoot 'em up, and that is. Turn the fader up. That is the game called Fruxton. Prepare for your ears, because this is some 16-bit screeching going on. Jesus. That is Genesis right there.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh Genesis too.
I'll tell you what, let's have some Grim Fandango. Try and...
That's better. I call them the shakes.
That's a bit better. Can't beat a bit of Grim Fandango, man. You just can't. Right. Oh, hello. Now my phone's going off. See, I'm so relaxed. Look at that. Okay. Right. Nice bit of professionalism there. It's okay. We do try our best. Right. Shut up, phone. Okay. This is the strangest music in the world to talk about Fruxton 2, but you know what? We're going to go with it. So, Fruxton. Top-down space shooter.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you regard it as a well-known one?
Not at all. And I also only know it pronounced as Truxton. So that's why I asked earlier, because I'm like, I never heard it pronounced that way.
I just can't. It's in my head. It doesn't come out that way. Just Fruxton. That's. I think it's because of the race track we have here in the UK called Fruxton.
Oh, see, I always think of Guns of Brixton by the Clash, so I think Guns of Truxton, even though it doesn't. I mean, but that's what I think of whenever I see it.
My wife said it was Fruxton as well, so I don't think it's just me.
Okay.
Anyway,
okay
Truxton. Doesn't matter.
It's all the same.
Doesn't matter. It's not very good. Right. So
this game is something else.
This game is. I've always known this as quite a well-known top-down space shooter. I'm quite surprised you didn't think it was that famous.
Well, I don't know it. I didn't know it until I played it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean anything. I really my knowledge of particularly older shoot 'em ups is limited to the really well-known ones like R-Type and Gradius and Salamander, Life Force, all those earlier ones.
The good ones.
Once you start getting into late 80s, especially the 90s, forget it. I don't know what happened in the 90s until the bullet hell stuff became big, and then I started kind of seeing it again. But so no, I have no recollection of Truxton, and though I quite enjoyed it actually. It's in a weird way, in a very masochistic way. I enjoyed it. Though I will say, might be one of the least creative shoot 'em ups from a level design and aesthetic standpoint.
One of my problems with it, there's not actually much level design going on.
No, not at all.
There's lots of nice looking things flying underneath you.
Yeah.
But there's not really a lot of challenge other than shoot all the enemies on the screen, which is one of my problems with what's the best? Well, we need to think of a term. What's the term most defining of the top? Is it top-down space shooter? Is that how it's classed in the States? There isn't a term
I would always top-down is something. I would say vertically scrolling.
Vertical scrolling.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I've always used.
Yeah.
But since shoot 'em ups as a genre are they're still around, but all the big game sites don't talk about them ever. No. So I don't really know what the term is these days. I know people hate the term shmup, which I guess I don't really blame them. But at the same time, what are you're going to call them a shooter? Because then you can also say, what about first-person shooters?
Yeah.
But it's a completely different genre. Yeah. It's not even in the same category. So I say shoot 'em up, and then vertical or horizontal scrolling.
Yeah.
Semantics.
They're fantastic. Like I say, the top-down perspective doesn't give you much maneuverability in terms of level design. I mean, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that ever tried to do that was quite funny. You mentioned it earlier, Silver Surfer, and look how that turned out.
That's true. Yeah.
That wasn't quite what I was expecting. But, yeah, so the level design kind of really, apart from it looking quite, well, I'm not going to say looking quite pretty. I don't think it does. But apart from lots of like pretty things flying underneath you, there's not a lot of level design going on. Now, what there is a lot of going on is enemies. And the biggest problem for me for this game is scale.
Yep.
And the fact that your ship is far too big and the enemies are far too big. And it's not the fact that the game is hard, and I don't think it's the fact there's that many bullets flying around. It's to do with the fact that there is not enough room on the screen for you to move around.
Yeah, because they have in this game, which I've never seen really in any shoot 'em up besides like earlier ones like Galaga, they have this like a quarter of the screen devoted to.
They have the Sega bar. It's back.
Right.
For some reason, they brought it back.
Right. Your points, the round, the stage, what your power-ups are, what your bombs are, and how many lives you have, and it's all in this one chunk.
Yeah.
And at first, you're like, oh, that's super convenient. Yeah, I know, I can see it all, and there it is. But then you're right. As time progresses and as the game gets more...
There's no room.
Intense. Yeah, and especially once you're fighting bosses. The way I got to the last stage in this, I didn't beat the game, but the way I got to the last stage is I collected a lot of bombs and then I just bombed the crap out of the hardest sections. Because there's only a couple hard sections per stage until you get to like 4 and 5, and then there's a lot more. But if you just save up bombs and just bomb the crap out of things, particularly the bosses, it's really not that bad.
No.
But you're right. The scale, that's a really good point, and I don't even think I called attention to that in the review.
No, the scale's well out of whack. The sound isn't. I mean, God, when you think of like space shooters in the Genesis, you just think, oh yeah, this is gonna sound awesome, but it doesn't sound awesome. It sounds actually quite tacky and quite rushed.
Yeah, it's not the best the Genesis has to offer.
No, so I'm saying all these things and you're agreeing with me, Dylan, and then I'm scrolling down and I'm seeing a B+.
Because I thought the shooting elements are great.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that part of it, and I'm a sucker for a masochistic shoot 'em up. So
aren't we all?
What can I say?
Yeah.
But I completely agree with that. If the shooting had been terrible, the actual gameplay had been terrible. I mean, this game is not good. The shooting works. Your ship actually moves around at a decent clip. There's enough bullets come out. It's not trying to cheese you that way. Another thing that this top-down space shooter, I'm struggling with that term today. Top-down space shooter seems to do is that I haven't really seen before in this quest is enemies will come at you from behind you. Oof, yeah, I didn't care much for that.
No, and the fact that you're limited in space to begin with, and then you've got enemies coming from behind and diagonally and at the side, I'll give them the credit. They don't limit. It's not like Space Invaders with a nice background. It's they're coming at you from all directions, and when you take in the fact there's the bar at the side that's limiting like the actual aspect ratio of the gameplay area, and then the fact that all the sprites are like probably 2 to 2.5 times too big, it just adds up a little bit too much for me. And yeah, I mean the actual shooting is competent, but just kind of just want to move around, need a bit more space, get your elbows out.
I understand, and I feel like constrictive top-down shooters, like compared to, because I feel like horizontal shoot 'em ups have limited space as well, and they make the best of that. But I feel like in vertical it's a lot harder, because vertical kind of gives this feeling of like you're constantly in motion, and it almost always feels faster than horizontal shoot 'em ups to me. Not all the time, but and so to have this kind of, it's like I don't know what I'm trying. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I guess it seems like if you're gonna do a constrictive shoot 'em up, like where the environment's pushed down upon the player, it would be better to do that in a horizontal, because, I don't know. You can just tailor the gameplay better in that situation, in that environment. Whereas the vertical, when I think about vertical shoot 'em ups, it's this constant wave of things coming at you, and the environments really don't have much to do with it. Just like they don't here, they don't really. But again, I guess it all goes back to the scale. Everything's too big, and there's just not enough screen to hold it all. But it is, even though it doesn't look great, I would say it's pretty ambitious, and the Genesis handles it well.
It does,
for the most part.
It's we don't get much of the slowdown really going on the Genesis. When the Super Nintendo tried doing things like with many things on the screen, it's famous for its slowdown. But the Genesis actually it could handle it pretty well.
Yeah.
The most favoritist comment from this comment section comes from Kurt13. It says, "You've got so many shoot 'em ups to go through. I hope your skills are improving to the max. Does gnarly flip on skateboard." I like that, Kurt.
Yeah.
That's the right attitude for this website. Well done, sir. Right. So next, we have a game that I will admit I tried, I failed. This is definitely in the Dylan D realms of playing, because the guy can actually kind of read what's going on. We have Mahjong Cop.
Yeah, Mahjong. Let's try it. Let's try and butcher this name. Well, I don't want to butcher it, but it's probably going to have Mahjong Cop Ryu Shiro Okami no Yabo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't get very far in this either. Wasn't really it wasn't so much the text as much as it was the fact that I've just plumb forgot how to play Mahjong. And as a matter of fact, I think this is Japanese Mahjong, which is Richi, and it's different than Chinese Mahjong, which I believe was in the first Mahjong game we played back on the SG-1000. A lot simpler, and I don't even think there's a huge difference, but I do know some of the rules are different. And I gotta say, whoever's writing these Mahjong FAQs on the internet, like, they're just, I can't make heads or tails of them. When I try and read them, they don't make sense to me. What I'm thinking I will have to do eventually, because there are so many Mahjong games, is I'm just going to have to buy a English Mahjong table set, and hope to God that whoever wrote the instructions knew what they were talking about, so it makes sense.
Well, maybe you can explain like what's the cop angle here?
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I made up a story. My first two paragraphs are all made up. It sounded good to me. I'm like, oh, that sounds like it could be it. But the idea to me, if I had to guess, look at the cover. Go on the site. Look at the cover.
Yeah.
Those are the characters you interact with. Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry is the main bad guy, the main villain.
RoboCop?
There's RoboCop. There's Arnold. There's a Kiss guy.
Yeah.
And I want to say that's a Holocaust survivor because he's got the Jewish patch on. It looks like
it. Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, I don't know if these are all characters that are against you. I don't know, or if you need to play matches against them to get to Dirty Harry over here. But all I know is that I thought it looked really cool and sounded really cool. And we actually got a comment from a guy, says he's from Japan, and actually his name is Voice from Japan. He says, "You need not bother with this. I'm Japanese, and I can say this is not up to your expectation. Avoid." Okay. I absolutely love that comment.
Brilliant.
So Thank you.
VFJ. Cheers. Hope to hear from you again.
I really hope please chime back in, because especially with some of these Japanese games that nobody knows what they're about. There's like no information on this game on the English speaking web.
No.
At all. None.
No. So maybe then we move on to the next game.
I would say so. And I would say if anybody's listening to this that has information that's played it, please chime in the comments. Because I think that I was happy to hear from that voice from Japan, but I was kind of hoping he would go a little more in depth, but he didn't, and that's fine. But if anybody has any more info on this, I would love to at least put it in the review, or just hear about it. So please shoot us a comment. Okay. Next game. Last game. It's a big one.
It is. I had some music. I'm fading real bad. Oh, there it is. Don't worry, it's coming.
I'm on. Oh man.
Okay, so
excited.
The suspense is killing everybody, I'm sure.
It is.
Okay, so we have Golden Axe. Golden Axe, Dylan. It's a big game.
Music really isn't that good.
No, it's really not. I was just about to say the music. If you listen to it, it's like, and that's exactly how I feel about the game.
Yeah, it's very underwhelming.
Yeah,
this game is hyped to hell, and Sega has released it on everything. Re-released it on everything. They really hold it in high esteem, or people keep buying it.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I brought it. I own it rather in a re-release format, but from back like in '93. So they were like even re-releasing it back in the day. I actually have it on the Sega CD, on a compilation disc that it came on that, and that was like back in the day. This is one of our premier. Yes, you want to own these games, and it's really not.
No. It's a very short and generic beat 'em up.
Do you think it's generic?
I think there are some interesting elements going on.
Yeah.
And I think that the only thing what distinguishes this game, well, first of all, this is an arcade game.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like, play it in the arcade. It's much better, from what I understand. It's been a long time.
I mean, it's not arcade perfect.
I don't think so at all. Like I said, it's if I've played it in the arcade, it's been since I was a kid.
Right.
I can't remember all the games I played as a kid, but
I'm sure.
I know it was around, and I know it was big back then. So, what it does differently, the fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Not a lot of beat 'em ups. Most beat 'em ups took place in urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to ride creatures, that was different.
Yeah.
Having magic in a beat 'em up, that was different. Though not that different from what Sega was doing with their other games, like Shinobi and
very true.
Mystic Defender.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and I've mentioned this in the review, I just feel like the fantasy setting is very bland. I don't think they really elaborate much on it. And even when you get excited, it's like, oh, we're going to be traveling on a turtle. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And then you get to the stage, and it's just a turtle head. Like, that's what they do to imply that you're on a turtle.
Yeah.
And it's like the rest of it doesn't look like a turtle at all. Like, that's, I don't know.
It's just such a... I don't know if it's a project, like a consequence of it being like a real early 16-bit game, because obviously it was out in the arcades before the Genesis ever existed, and I don't know whether we might be giving it a little bit of a hard time because it's a lot earlier than we give it credit for.
But okay, that's fine. But let's look back and see. This is herein lies the issue and the problem with reviewing these games in chronological order. This was one of Sega's premier franchises in the arcade. Bring it to the Genesis, doesn't look as impressive stacked next to Mystic Defender or Revenge of Shinobi.
Very true.
Both of those games just put to shame this game. Now, so what I'm saying is that I feel like this is kind of where you start to see the divide. There's the arcade side where this game excels at being. Then there's the console side where eventually you will get console-specific beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage 2, which is considered a classic, rightfully so, but never saw an arcade release, totally separate, very Genesis feeling. This game to me, and they tried to add more value to it, so they added a couple levels which are shorter, but I mean, there's a little something extra, I guess. And then there's also a mode called the Duel, which is kind of like a player versus player type mode, or if you're just playing one player, you could fight, I think it's like 12 rounds of enemies, something like that. So they do add a little more value than what's seen in the arcade, but in general, the levels are shorter for some reason. There's content added and content removed.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I guess it balances out, but in general, I just think if you compare it to other releases around that time for the Genesis, it doesn't hold up. And maybe if you just play it separately from that and you're not doing a project like what we're doing, it might look better. I don't know.
I completely agree. I personally think this game is on the Sega Genesis so that they could run the advert, or the commercial, as you say in the States, and have the very famous commercial of, hey, Tommy, you want Golden Axe? And then they wheel him in a big arcade unit, slam it in his room, and then they go, hey, Tommy, you can have Golden Axe on the Genesis. Right. And they have, like, Genesis screen left, arcade screen right. Do you see a difference? That's because there is none. And there was. Even on the advert, there was a little bit. But to be fair, it was pretty damn close.
And I want to clarify, too, that I agree. I think this visually, this is, especially in 89, this game just had to have blown minds.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I totally agree with what you're saying, where this was what they used as for like an arcade perfect, example.
Yeah. Which is a bit unfair because it kind of looked a bit naff for the arcades, really.
Yeah. It definitely didn't. It doesn't hold up next to some of Sega's more impressive technical titles. And even later in the comments, Sean talks about the Golden Axe sequel in the arcade that was only ever arcade specific.
Right.
And apparently, I've never played it, but apparently it was a powerhouse, technically speaking. Yeah. But it was never ported to any Sega console or anything else, I don't think. So, arcade only.
That sounds cool. I might have to look that up. Cheers, Sean. Let's have a look here at some comments then. Since we're mentioning commenters, we have Eric. He says, you watch your mouth about what you're talking about, the axe, or whatever, of gold. Okay, maybe the first one of its kind. Lame. But the second one is for real, and then there's the third one. Now, this game, yes, it got an arcade sequel that Sean just mentioned, but it also got two other sequels on the Sega Genesis, and they are supposed to be a lot better.
Yeah.
Which will be very interesting. I have both, so we will see. When about did they come out, Dylan? Do you know off the top of your head?
This actually, in several places I looked, this has a concrete release date for the US. 12/22/89, which is a day before the Japanese release, 12/23.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's true, and I don't know where that date came from because I couldn't trace it back, but I put it on there to perpetuate a potential lie, just in case.
We have a comment here from Sut. I'm not going to read all of it because it's rather long, but he says, I absolutely adore this game, although my main memories are with the Atari ST and Amiga. Woo! Amiga shout-out versions. The Mega Drive is probably the best home port. Shut your mouth, man. That Amiga port is cool. Let's have a look. GH. Wow, you didn't really enjoy Golden Axe, did you? And then he goes, I can't blame you. It is very much a Sega game. I don't really know what he quite means by that. I think I do. A good-looking but shallow arcade port. Being a Brit, I grew up with Sega, so Golden Axe is a game I love despite all its flaws. Had I grown up with Nintendo instead, I would probably be obsessed with the likes of Castlevania. Golden Axe wouldn't have got a second look. Well, that's very true, but as we've discussed before on the podcast, for some reason Nintendo didn't really get much of a foothold over here, probably until late Super Nintendo's coming on N64, so strange old one those.
Not a time to get into Nintendo, that's for sure.
No, I mean the Super Nintendo was big. That was the. You see, I say that, but I say that because I was a Nintendo kid, don't I? Obviously, duh. But I don't know, man. It's really hard for me looking back on this time period and going, right, I had this, and it was fantastic, and I had loads of fun, and I did have like 3 or 4 friends that were like into Super Nintendo like me. So in like my circle of friends, it was kind of like, yeah, Super Nintendo is great. But actually, outside of my circle of friends, with the cool kids, I'll just say, there was like 10, 15 of them, and they all had like Segas. So it's like,
right.
It was a strange one, and we knew, like, yeah, Yoshi's Island is bloody well better than Sonic 3D, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what are you playing for Christmas? Sonic 3D? Well, I got Mario Kart and Yoshi's Island. I know what I'm sticking with. And yeah, it's a really, really interesting time. I'm gonna think of some of the old stories that we used to, all the old playground fights we used to have, and we'll discuss them one day, because man, there are some funny ones.
Some good ones, yeah.
Yeah, we had the classic of what was it? Was it Daniel Smith? That was it. Daniel Smith, and he says, "Oh man, not Genesis, obviously. The Mega Drive is so much more powerful than Super Nintendo. Have you seen Sonic 3D? Have you seen Sonic 3D?" And I said, "Have you played Sonic 3D?" And he was like, "Yeah, I played Sonic 3D. It's amazing. It's rendering real time 3D, man, just like Jurassic Park." And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Wow.
It was a lot bigger than me, so I wouldn't have. But I really wanted to floor him. I was like, "Oh, come on!" It's like, yeah, to make Jurassic Park, they had like a room full of Mega Drives, and that's how they did it. I was like, oh, "Come on, please." Anyway, the crazy things we got up to in elementary school. Right. Any more thoughts, Dylan?
So quaint back then, I guess, as far as like the fights, you know, compared to today. I did want to bring up real quick and I don't believe I necessarily sent this to you. I don't know if I sent the Master System Golden Axe to you.
That was it. That was what I was wanting to mention. Master System. I can't even say it.
Have you played it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's a scene.
I had it. I don't have it anymore.
Oh, you had it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you've seen the score I gave it, but a little controversial, I think, for some folks.
No. Is it possible to go lower than an F? Because I'd have given it.
It's so bad, and I don't like. There are people that love this game, and there are people that say that I don't. I'm sorry, friends. I want to understand your viewpoint.
They're not your friends. They're deluded, man.
I really want to understand people's views on some of these games, but this one in particular, I'm like, there are better looking Master System games from like 2 or 3 years ago than this. It doesn't matter that they tried. It matters that they failed. That's what matters.
People, when they defend that game, they're like, "Oh man, do you realize what it's doing? Do you realise that every enemy and every character is a background sprite, so there's no flickering? I'm like, I don't care. It's crap. All right? Please.
Yeah, it's pretty... And especially when you play them both back to back, like I did.
Oh man, I can't imagine.
It's and I really like. Here's the thing: I've done this. I want to say 3 times now. Forgotten Worlds. Yeah. That was the other time. That was one time where I played the Genesis Master System back to back, and then Ghouls and Ghosts. I do not like Ghouls and Ghosts for the Genesis. I quite enjoyed it for the Master System. I was surprised that it was an interesting Master System take. So I mentioned that to say that I'm not automatically biased towards Genesis games. I just want, but when you have a game like this, and like you liked Forgotten Worlds for the Master System, which I didn't really care for. So, it's not like we're just automatically prejudiced against these games. It's just I could have chosen a lot worse screenshot than I chose, actually. This wasn't a bad one. But I had a few others, and they were not good. They all looked bad. And so I don't know what to say. As far as changes go,
that's nasty.
Less levels. You only get to play as one character.
Yep.
None of that really concerned me. It's more of how poorly the game plays.
Why bother?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Did Golden Axe really have that much of a cachet with its name?
I just think Sega wanted to appeal to Master System owners who had stuck with them, which I can understand. But
give them this?
I know that's the
like
problem.
Slapping you in the face.
Yeah, their intentions were good, but they shouldn't have even. Yeah,
mind you, we got it good when what's the release date for the Master System Golden Axe? Is it around the same time?
Yeah.
See, the Master System, I'll tell you what, probably Master System game that impressed me the most is the Sonic port. That's real good.
Now, clarify this. Is that also the Game Gear Sonic, or is it a different game entirely?
People say this about the Game Gear, and they say, oh, the Game Gear, it's just a Master System, but on a smaller screen. It's not. It is not, and it is not the same game. It may be based on the same code. It may have some sprites that look the same, but it is not. It really infuriates me that people say, "Oh yeah, I played the Game Gear version." Oh, you mean the Master System version? Oh, it's the same thing. It's not. It's not. The Game Gear was not a Master System in your hand, ever. Nowhere near. No, when we get around to it, which will be soon, and we may be talking about Sonic in a bit more detail soon, with the 25th anniversary looming.
Yeah, in the next month, I think.
Yeah.
End of June. So, I'd say if we do talk about that, we should do like a overview of the series. I think that'd be fun.
I think so.
And maybe our memories. That'd be
Sonic memories. I remember having these. What do you call them? You call them chips, don't you? Crisps.
Fries?
No,
Fries?
you get them like in a packet. You have them for lunch at school.
Oh, chips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember having Sonic the Hedgehog chips, but they weren't made of potato. They were made of something probably
magic?
very simple. Well, yeah, I think he claimed it was magic. It was a bit of like Chinese newspaper and marshmallow rolled up into one. I think it was. Wow. Sonic's name was on everything. Everything.
The early 90s. I was such a huge Sonic fan, and I got everything. I mean, as much as I could, anyway.
It's strange because I'd never had a proper like home console till like 93, and I was a massive Sonic fan in like 91, 92. I never owned a Sega. I never had Sonic. I never had Sonic until I got the Master System like many, many, many years later. But I was a massive Sonic fan, and I didn't have any of the games. I used to go to the video store and rent the cartoon series.
Oh yeah,
on VHS, but I never played any of the games. It never even twigged me. Oh, I need to get that game. Never even twigged. I was just like a Sonic fan. And
wow,
you know that's when you've got a powerful thing, when like the main product that you use to push it, people don't even need it to be in love with that character. It's just. Fantastic. Anyway.
Yeah. More recollections in a couple episodes from now, I would say.
We should call it like the Sonic backspin or something cool like that.
Sonic, we'll think of something.
We'll think so. Anyway.
You put us on the spot. Stop it. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to play a little bit of... Game over, yeah!
I hope these are games that are a little easier.
Okay, well, we've only got 2 today. I was in a bit of a rush, but if you don't get these, then I'll be very disappointed. Okay, so the first one. There you go.
Is that Revenge of Shinobi?
No. It's Golden Axe.
Oh.
Oh, damn.
I didn't really get game overs in that game.
Well, that's what it sounds like. So you failed on that one. Okay, number 2. What's that?
Is that Revenge of Shinobi?
It is Revenge of Shinobi. Well done. Yay. So that was a very, very quick version of...
Man, Golden Axe. What the heck, Golden Axe? It's like, I heard it, I'm like, that doesn't even really ring a bell. So,
no.
Oh well.
So, that was the Sega Does episode 38. Really, I'm trucking along now, Dylan, aren't we?
Yeah, it helps to have a lot more free
wow.
time. It helps. I have a lot more free time, so I can play more games now. So.
Yeah. So, anyway, anything you want to mention?
Trying to kind of rework the blog a bit. I would appreciate... I got a suggestion that I'm considering.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who it was. I'm sorry, I forget your name, but... talking about making the game lists a bit more, putting more information, I guess, next to the game's titles, maybe putting the review score and the date that came out and all that.
Very cool. I understand what you mean.
I sympathize with that, and I think that'd be a good idea. That will take me forever, and I'm not entirely sure how to do it with WordPress, the version of WordPress I have right now. So, the other thing is that I have some other ideas, but I'd be curious to hear if anybody has any ideas on how to streamline the Sega Does experience, because obviously at some point this site is going to have just an insane amount of reviews, and I would like to start sooner than later on making it very easy for people to find what they're looking for. And also find the information that they're looking for as well. The only thing I have against putting the review score next to the game is, in many cases, particularly today, people won't even look at the review if they see it. If they're like, "Oh, he didn't like Golden Axe," well, I'm not even going to read his review because he's an idiot. No, I'd prefer you click on the.
How did they know?
Review. I know. Prefer you click on the review. Even if all you do is look at the score and bounce, at least you clicked on the review.
Yeah.
So the review score might not happen next to the title, but I agree. I think it'd be good to have a little more information, or even like the covers. Gosh, that would be an undertaking. Wow, that would be so crazy long.
Well, there are ways to database that.
Yeah, I'm using WordPress's free. .com. I'm not using WordPress.org, which is much more flexible, like WordPress on like a hosting site. I'm not doing that. There's a lot of more flexibility there, and that's probably eventually the route I'll have to go. But right now, I'm just doing this. So anyway, suggestions people have.
Yeah.
Streamline the experience, make it better. That would be great. And kind of. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's what I was going to say. There's something I want to say that. Recently, we talked about Dylan being on Retronauts, which was obviously very cool.
Yes.
It helped the site and it helped the podcast a little bit. We had some really good feedback about, oh man, I never knew this place existed. Where have you been? And this is really great. Why don't more people know about you? And I'm not making that up. I've had, and Dylan has had quite a few comments of, man, I wish I'd found you guys earlier and stuff like that. And if you like Sega Does and you want to help us out, there are many, many, many different ways. Not all of them are going to cost you any money that you that you can help us out.
Trust us, yeah.
Trust us. There are. If you like Sega Does and you like what we do, if you just leave us a review on iTunes or on any podcast service that you do so use, you would not believe how much that helps us. You would not believe it. It is like Apple has a mafia-style grip over how podcasts are rated, reviewed, and how they are spread about the internet. It is crazy. And I'm not sitting here going, oh my God, this is just like what all those guys do at the end of a podcast, and they always say, oh, help me, I want to improve. This is not about our ego. I hate the internet, bloody YouTube celebrity guys that are all about making themselves famous. We ain't about making ourselves famous. We are about cataloguing this stuff.
Yes.
That's what we've always been about. We don't want to be celebrities. We want to be useful. And if you leave us a review, that helps us so much. Also, other ways you can get involved are through the Patreon. If you go patreon.com.
That does cost money.
That does cost a bit of money. But for some reason, all you guys out there like flinging it at guys that have opinions about opinions. And rather than... If you think, you could give us $1 a month and create this amazing catalogue, this amazing Sega dictionary. Even if you just do it for a few months, just help us out. Help Dylan out, bless him. He needs help. Look at him. Look at that guy. He needs help. He needs coffee. Just think if you give him $1, you think, man,
I want to say,
one day when he was sat at his desk and he was stressed out, my $1 brought him a coffee. And that chilled him out for that day to be able to write that amazing F-grade Golden Axe Sega Master System review. And you think how impressed you will be in 50 years' time, right? If you come back to Sega Does and you see, wow, there's been like 400 million views of this Golden Axe review on the Sega Master System. They got an F, and your coffee made that happen. Your $1. Just think about that.
Well, and first of all, that was awesome. Second of all, I want to say I am very, very grateful to any kind of support that I get. I love this site's comment section. And I'm not trying to... I've seen sites that have really well-known journalists who write articles, very good articles, and they don't get the comments that this comment section gets.
No.
It's amazing. I'm everyone is very respectful, like 99% of the time. So I absolutely love the community this site has, and that keeps me going too, because I love reading your guys' thoughts on, and I love hearing about like, oh, well, when I was growing up, I played this game or whatever. I love all that. I
love that. I really love relating to back when I was a kid. I love those stories.
Yeah. The internet is going to be, in about 30 or 40 years' time, the internet is going to be the last bastion for us old farts who are like, oh, remember that, 8 and 16-bit, and it's starting now.
It is.
But it's not going to ever change. It's just going to, it's going to get more in-depth. So as far as the Patreon goes, here's the deal. I appreciate it if you can. If you can't, it's no big deal. That being said, it really does, like, $1 a month makes my day. And people don't think that, and people think that's weird. But it's more about the idea that you get enough, you like enjoy the content enough that you want to support what's happening behind the scenes. And here's the other thing, like, I do have plans. It's not like I'm like, oh yeah, all that Patreon money is just for me. Like, I want to invest it in the site. I want to start doing videos. I want to start having... I would love for Sega Does to become this huge site that has everything you would ever need for, like, Sega info. Realistically, is that going to happen? I don't know. One day at a time, not all that. But, the more financial support I get, the more I can do some of these ideas that I have in my head. And if I don't get it, that's okay, because we can do the podcast and the reviews, forever, I guess. But it's just until one of us has issues that prevent us from doing that. But we really appreciate you guys and want to say that, any support you can give us is great, financial or otherwise. And thanks for reading, and thanks for listening. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. So, until next time, Dylan, Sega.